Thirsty for action? Let's crack open the Sunday Six-Pack.
Let's get into our six-pack because we got no Thursday night football, which means straight six-pack this weekend. And we're opening it up to any type of bet, totals, props, whatever. The only rule is we have to have at least one side each. So that'll be our six-pack. Stuck, you're up 69-63. We'll do same 2-2 for our first two picks, 1 point for the third, and a bonus point if we sweep all three. You went first last week, so I'm up first this week, and I'll start it off with the first pick of the super wild card weekend six-pack, going with the Green Bay Packers plus 7.5 at the Dallas Cowboys. And I think the key for me in this one is anytime you face Dallas in Dallas, you need to score if you're going to back a team to cover against the Cowboys in Dallas. Well, Green Bay, 6th in offensive DVOA on the year. Dallas, 9th, by the way. So Green Bay has overtaken Dallas. And then in weighted DVOA, which just weights recent games more heavily, discounts games earlier in the season, Green Bay is top 3 in offense. Dallas is 8. So this Green Bay offense playing well, and that's mostly to do with Jordan Love, who, kind of took the cobwebs out over the first 2 months of the season. He was sitting for the better part of 3 years outside a couple of spot starts, but his numbers since November have been borderline elite. First 7 games in September, October, 58% completion rate. Since then, 69%, 213 yards per game and 6.4 yards in attempt over the first 2 months, 267 and 7.7 yards in attempt over the last 2 months, 2.1 touchdowns per game, just 0.3 picks. So a 21-3 touchdown and interception ratio since November. That spans 10 games. His sack rate has gone down as well. And that's despite missing Christian Watson for 5 games, Musgrave, the top tight end for 6 games, Aaron Jones for 3 games, Wicks for 2 games in parts of others, Jaden Reed for a game in parts of others. Even Dobbs left last game. So Love has been doing all this with a rotating cast of receivers. The O-line is held up, tied for 7th in pass block efficiency since week 9 per PFF. And both tackles, Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom, grade out in the top 25 among 83 qualifiers in terms of pass blocking. And, so Love has got protection. And Dallas pass rush, it's been good, but not dominant, at least by the numbers. They are 8th in sack rate, 13th in sacks per game, and 16th in pressure rate. So Dallas, obviously they're going to be able to get pressure, but this Green Bay O-line should be able to hold up. And Jordan Love also has done well against this kind of scheme. We all know Dallas plays the most man coverage in the league. They got Deron Bland and Gilmore on the outside, but Love's passer rating 13 points better against man coverage than against zone coverage this year. And, obviously Dallas has been a juggernaut for the most part at home, but you just got to score to keep up with them. And I don't think Green Bay is going to have too much of a problem with that. They've done this all year going on the road. They're 3rd in the league in points per game on the road, just over 25. And if you're looking for a trend, wild card or divisional round, single-digit road dogs on Sundays, 46, 16, and 1, 74% against the spread since 2003, covering by 4.4 points per game on average. I think Green Bay can hang here. I think this is too many points. I think this line should be 5.5, 6, just at maybe a hair inside of 6, but you could round it to 6. So love getting the 7.5 with Green Bay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this would have been my first pick, but you took it.
Nice.
This is the side that I like the most by far this weekend. Just to add on, Love, who ended up finishing top 5 EPA among all quarterbacks, among 33 quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks since week 11. He's second EPA plus completion percentage over expectation, only behind Purdy. Same time frame since week 11. 18 touchdowns, 1 interception, 70% completion percentage, 7.7 yards per attempt with a ridiculous 0.26 EPA per pass play. I mean, he's just been unbelievable. Prescott's been right behind him, but you said it. This Dallas team, look, I've only faded them since that. I said I don't want to get in front of this Dallas train ever since I saw what they did coming out of the bye. The only time I faded them was against the Bills. Luckily, that worked out. I'm fading them here. I took the 7.5 as well. I think this line should be closer to 6. And the Packers offense, yeah, they can keep up. They're playing just too well right now for me not to take this. I also could see McCarthy making a boneheaded clock management or just in-game decision to cost Dallas points. And you mentioned it. This Dallas team, look, Prescott's been really good as a favorite in this range, but usually it's against inferior teams. And once they get a lead, then they can take advantage of bad offensive lines. That's not the case here. Green Bay's offense right now is humming. Their offensive line can hold up against this Dallas pass rush. And then you'll hear the narrative. Well, it's not necessarily a narrative, it's a fact, but that Dallas has been so dominant at home. They're averaging 37 points per game. They haven't lost. But here's what they beat: the Patriots, the Jets, the Giants, the Commanders, the free-falling Eagles, the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Lions. And by the way, the Lions should have won, and the Seahawks had the ball with a chance to win late in that game. So it's not like they've been completely invincible. And the rest of those teams were either in free fall mode or I just have inept offenses or offensive lines. And they've really capitalized, and then everything just snowballs. I don't think that's the case here. Dallas is going to get its points, but like you said, I think Green Bay can keep up. It's not the worst matchup for the Green Bay defense, but I don't think they're going to get too many stops. And Green Bay on the road this year, yes, they're only 4-5. All 5 losses by 4 points or less. Dallas, all the pressure here. Green Bay can play loose. There is a stat here that I'll mention, a trend of inexperienced quarterbacks making their first start. And it's bad. If you go back, quarterbacks making their first playoff start, just 17, 35, and 1 against the spread against quarterbacks who have playoff experience. So that applies this weekend to Stroud, Love, Rudolph, and Tua. I think it does apply to Rudolph, very inexperienced, but I don't think that's necessarily the case with Love, who's playing so well. And by the way, also Stroud, these guys played in they've played in playoff games the past 2 weeks. Stroud went on the road last weekend. That was a playoff game. On the road, he had to win and in, or you're out. Love the past couple weeks been playing in playoff games. So I just think that, agree, it's too many points. This offense is playing too well. I love the Packers here. Wouldn't be shocked if they pulled off the outright upset, but I think Dallas probably finds a way to pull it out by 3-6.
Yeah. Let me just mention before we go on, with that offense playing the way it is, weighted overall DVOA, Dallas top 5 team, obviously. That's why they're weighing, over a touchdown. But Green Bay now up to 12th. So that shows you how much that offense is kind of impacting the overall team. And that's really what you need. So it's number 4 versus number 12, which, the line's implying that it's a much bigger mismatch than that. So,
yeah. All right. For my first pick and the second overall of the wildcard weekend 6-pack, let's go prop Joe status. I'm going to go give my prop here. I rarely get the bet props unless it's unless it's the playoffs. And I'm going with Cade Otton Monday night. Cade Otton over 21.5 receiving yards. That's the official pick for the 6-pack, but I split up my bet in 3 because I'm going to explain all 3. Over 21.5 receiving yards is one I like the most, but I also played over 2.5 catches and longest catch over 11.5 yards. So I'll explain all 3 here. Number 1, the Eagles cannot defend tight ends to save their lives. On the season, they allowed 4.8 catches on average and about 50 yards to tight ends per game. That includes the Dolphins game. Dolphins don't use tight ends, and they had no yards in that game. But since week 8, they've had injuries on the back end. Matt Patricia took over. The defense is lost. Everyone's out of assignment. There's injuries. They're 31st in EPA per play on defense since week 9. But since week 8, the Eagles have allowed opposing tight ends to average 5.8 receptions for 58 yards. Also, with the big plays, and Otten, who has get over 11.5 longest reception, and Otten and the Eagles, for what it's worth, have allowed 22 completions on the season in 17 games of at least 12 yards to opposing tight ends. Over the past 6 games, that number, 9, 8 of those are over 20. There's a good chance he goes over his reception yards and over his longest reception with just 1 catch. And, Cade Otten is not great by any stretch, but, he has 13 catches on the season of at least 12 yards. So in 17 games, he has 13 catches of at least 12 yards. And he has 50 targets over his last 11 games. There's no real other tight end. He's going to be on the field most of the game. And here's why I think he'll get, and look, Philly can't defend tight ends, but here's why I think he potentially might even get more looks. And why Philly's production is going down against tight ends. Not only are there injuries, Reed Blankenship, his production's fallen off a cliff. But the Eagles' offense right now is a mess, right? Hurts might be banged up. A.J. Brown is banged up. They can't figure out how defenses have adjusted to them. The play calling is a mess. So what does that mean? Less efficient offense means more snaps for the opposition. And, in the past, you go back to that Rams game, for example. The Rams, they don't have the ball the entire game because the Eagles can just keep it and their offense is humming. But not only that, when the Bucs do have the ball, Baker's banged up. This offensive line might not be able to hold up against the pass rush. And Tampa's a bottom 5 rushing offense, might not be able to run in this game. So I don't think they're going to have much success in the ground. So it's going to lead to a lot of passing downs and potentially, it might even throw in some weather, Mayfield having to get rid of the ball quick. So with all the focus on Godwin and Evans, I think Otten can really take advantage. I think this number is too low. So I'm going over 21.5 receiving yards. I also played some over 2.5 catches. Longest catch over 11.5 yards, which you could find out there. Curious to get your thoughts on this one because you would know way better than me. But that's what I dug into and found.
Yeah, so I actually shouted out Otten as the tight end that I'm high on and one of the best DFS values because I agree. I think his number at 21.5, that's pretty low considering he's, like you said, on the field almost every snap. He's averaging a route participation rate of 93% over his last 6 games. And that's, for the season, he's right around 90%. So he's missing maybe 1 or 2 plays or blocking on maybe 1 or 2 plays, I should say. And he's gone for 27 or more 7 of his last 12 games. So everything kind of points to him being like this guy who's, no one's really going to pay attention to him. No, he's not sexy. He's not a big play guy. But like you said, as Matt Patricia, he is from the Belichick school, probably going to sell out a little more than even most defenses do to try to take away Mike Evans. Also, like you said, Baker's going to have to get the ball out quick. So, yeah, I think Otten, I have him at 27 yards. So I think the one you're playing for the contest is probably the best value. I have him at 2.8 catches. So that's like slight lean to the over 2.5, but I think there's more value on the yardage. So I like this one because I think Otten he kind of sticks out as like that one. And he's one, not everyone, as we record this, not everyone has a prop listed yet. You have a lot of question marks with the Eagles in terms of their injuries. You got a lot of question marks with the Packers. So Otten is one of the few receiving props that I think, early in the week that shows value. So hopefully, as you guys are listening to it, you can get this before it moves too much. But yeah, I do like it. And I was actually curious before we move on, just your general thoughts on this this Eagle team. Like, because the one risk with Otten is we're kind of expecting the Eagles, to be in a slightly positive game script, I guess. But I mean, what do you think the chances are the Eagles just like don't have AJ Brown, don't have Devontae Smith, banged up Hurts, like what do you think chances are the Eagles just face plant here? Not that Otten couldn't still hit his number, but just in general, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think that they're more likely to rally. The Bucs aren't good. I would love to fade the Eagles.
Yeah.
They're a mess on both sides of the ball. Just talked about their defense. Their offense, too, AJ Brown, the big plays aren't there. Hurts has declined. They can't figure out how to pick up a blitz. But this team went to the Super Bowl last year. This is a chance to, hit the reset button going into the postseason. And we saw the same exact situation last season. You never want to overreact to the NFL. The Cowboys were in the Eagles' shoes. They had to win and then hope the Eagles lost, but they knew that the Eagles were probably going to win. And they went up to Washington, laid an egg, lost 26-6. Dak had his worst game ever. Well, what happened the next week because of that? Dallas had to go to Tampa. Monday night, 4-5 game. And Dak looked like prime Joe Montana and had one of the best playoff performances of all time. And everyone said Dallas stinks, and then Dallas rolled in that game. So I think Philly will rally here. I think that this is their ceiling, though. Winning this game, it's more about just the Bucs. But I think Sirianni will play us against the wild card, and it could get them by this week. But I think you'll get a decent effort from them. And then depending on how everything else shapes out, most likely they're going to San Fran, and then the party's over. But I will say, if they do lay an egg, Sirianni might be out the door. But I think you're getting a good effort. I still think the Bucs can win this game, especially given the injuries, which is we'll talk about. I guess we're talking about it now, but we'll talk about our money line dogs later. And I'll be going with Tampa there.
All right, let's go to my second and the third overall pick of the Super Wild Card Weekend 6-pack, going with the Miami Dolphins +4 at the Kansas City Chiefs. And I just think the market is overreacting to, Miami and the can't beat good teams. And, they've got a couple injuries on defense. I still think this is too many points. Yeah, I mean, they got a lot, but all right. So, and I'll talk about that. But I just think this is too many points, even with everything going on with Miami. Because first of all, now Miami outgained Kansas City in that first meeting, 292-267, lost on a fluky Tyreek Hill fumble 6 and whatnot. Now they've lost, Chubb and Phillips, their top pass rushers since then, which, is obviously a concern. But last week, without both of them, they were able to pressure Josh Allen on 20 of 44 dropbacks, or 44%, which is a pretty high number. They still held Buffalo to 14 points, on offense. One of Buffalo's touchdowns came on a Deontay Hardy 96-yard punt return, which not very sustainable. And the way this team matches up with the Chiefs, I still think they have enough on defense, because you still have Ramsey, you still have Holland in the back end. And this Chiefs team, they're
banged up too, though.
Yeah.
That's what's scary.
I mean, they look like they're going. Like, I don't like they're on the injury report, but I think those guys are straight. But my thing with the Chiefs is, like, everyone wants to talk about how banged up the Dolphins are, which fine, it's true. But let's not act like everything hasn't been a struggle for this Chiefs team offensively for the better part of, the second half of the season, if not longer. What happens when you get to the playoffs? Teams are going to play more man coverage, especially if you have weakness at receiver. Well, the Chiefs have two dudes, Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. Miami, in that first meeting, held Rashee Rice to a season low 17 yards on 2 catches.
They just put Ramsey on Rice, take him out. Bracket
And then Kelsey, they held Kelsey to a season low 14 yards.
Yeah, they bracketed
right. So you're taking those 2 guys away. You showed you can still get pressure last week without your top pass rushers. You showed that you could still, be competitive against a high-powered offense in Buffalo on the road last week. And Patrick Mahomes averages a full adjusted net yard per attempt less against man coverage than zone for this exact reason. After Kelsey and Rice, it's Justin Watson's like their best receiver against man coverage. That's not going to cut it. And for all the defense, for all your losing on defense for Miami, you didn't have Achane in that first matchup. And this is going to be a game that it's going to be forecast in the single-digit temps, double-digit mile-per-hour winds. Achane's averaging 7.7 yards per touch, leads all running backs, scoring on 8.5% of his touches, leads all running backs. And this Chiefs defense, 27th in DVOA against the run, even though they've been good, probably the best defense of the Mahomes era, 27th in DVOA against the run, 21st in DVOA on passes to running backs. So just having Achane, regardless if Mostert goes, and he did practice Tuesday, and so did Jaylen Waddle.
He should be back.
Yeah, and Waddle practiced Tuesday as well. So you could have a full deck plus Achane, who you didn't have last game. But the Dolphins are still the better run defense of the 2. Achane is unlike any other player in this league in terms of what he can do explosively right now from the running back position. His 7.7 yards per touch, that's nearly 2 yards per touch more than Christian McCaffrey. So just to put it in perspective. Now, obviously you expect them to regress, but that just shows you what a big weapon they were missing. So I just don't, when I look at this matchup, if all things being equal, like a healthy Miami, I would have power rated about 1.5 points above Kansas City with all the injuries and everything that's going on, and Kansas City being at home on long rest or with the rest advantage because most of the starters didn't play last week. I still make this around just inside of a field goal. So I just think this line of 4 is too many points. I think Miami's a live dog in this spot. This Kansas City offense, if they have to score, Miami's still explosive. You still got Tyreek. You're gonna have Achane. If Kansas City has to score more than 21, and they're averaging 21.8, the lowest of the Mahomes era, they're 15th in the league. If they have to score more than 21, all bets are off. Period. So I like Miami here, and trend wise, wild card road dogs by a touchdown or less, 30-18, 63% against the spread over the last 2 decades, covering by just under 2 points per game. So give me Miami +4.
Yeah, I like it now that this has gone way up. I like the Chiefs at the end of the opener, -1.5. Kudos to anyone who got that. I did not. But yeah, this has gone too far now. It's even with all of the injuries, and yeah, with Mostert and Achane, I think they're going to come out, run heavy game plan. You can run on the Chiefs, take some shots off of play action. I do worry a little bit about Miami in cold weather, but you're going to see a lot. They're 0-10 straight up since 2017, below 40 degrees. It's a warm weather team, but they went up to Buffalo in the playoffs last year when it was cold. McDaniel, remember, he was wearing the shirt that said, "I'm not cold." And they had Skylar Thompson. They lost 34-31 to the Bills. So they were in that game. So, but I worried. The Chiefs obviously more familiar with the conditions. They obviously got the rest last week while Miami got more injuries. And you lost Van Ginkel. Good. Yeah. We'll see, the whole secondary, and Howard's still going to be out. Howard is an overrated loss.
Yeah, it might be an addition by subtraction.
Him and Apple are equal. Howard is washed. So as long as you got Ramsey, because I agree, you can take Ramsey, put him on Rice, bracket Kelsey, or you can be like Kelsey's washed and just have, you could have Ramsey 1-on-1 with Kelsey. But I think they'll probably just take away Rice, bracket Kelsey again. Now they were able to generate pressure last week because they blitzed a lot, which especially in the second half, once they started losing guys. Which Fangio usually doesn't do, but he didn't have any edge guys left. There's two things I'm really interested to see in this game, and then I want to get your thoughts on a prop that I looked at. But one, will Fangio sit back and say, we don't trust your receivers. We're going to take away Rice. We're going to take away Kelsey. Try to move it down the field methodically, which the Chiefs have not been able to do efficiently this season. Or is he going to try to blitz to generate pressure? But, you don't really want to blitz Mahomes. But I don't know if they'll be able to generate pressure without that. They are defensive edge rushers for this game. Man, if this is 2017, they signed Bruce Irvin,
right?
Justin Houston. These guys, Irvin, who they signed someone else that's on the practice squad.
Ingram.
Yeah, Ingram too. But who did they sign? D tackle.
Houston was the guy they signed. I thought.
Yeah, they signed someone else too. Malik Reed.
Oh yeah.
But all these guys that did sign have some history in Fangio's system, which is good. So they can come in and, maybe give 10 or so, 10, 15 snaps. I am interested to see, does Kansas City, because the depth on Miami's defensive line is so bad. Now they try to address it. They're going to bring in how old is Bruce Irvin's 37. Does Kansas City go hurry up and try to wear out the thin Miami defensive front? I don't know. It's a possibility. Keeps me off the under because the way I see Miami going with a really run-heavy game plan. The Kansas City offense is just stuck in the mud, freezing conditions, outdoor wildcard unders have been a cash cow in the past. But because I think Kansas City could potentially go hurry up here, and then you could get some Miami explosives, I'm staying away from the total. The prop that I wanted to get your thoughts on is with all these injuries that Miami's had, on the defensive line, at linebacker, I think regardless they're going to blitz a little bit more, but they either do that or they're going to sit back in zones or be blitzing. Pacheco receptions or reception yards, I couldn't decide which one, but shouldn't he have a big game here out of the backfield, like dump offs? Also, you're going to get the full Andy Reid playbook, screens, which should work against this Miami defense if they're being a little bit more aggressive. But I didn't know if I wanted to split them up, if I wanted to go yards or receptions. Do you have any thoughts on Pacheco?
Yeah, I think Pacheco is going to be the centerpiece of the game plan. I think they'd probably be better off just handing him the ball. But he will see essentially the most pass snaps he's ever going to see because Jarrett McKinnon was placed on IR a few weeks ago. So, I know Pacheco's kind of been in and out, but he might, he was playing, upwards of 55% of the pass snaps, which, he used to be in the 40% in terms of routes run. So the thing about Miami is they allow the second fewest schedule adjusted targets per game to running backs. And
but they played such, I don't know if they're going to play
well, that's schedule adjusted. So
no, but I'm saying because of all their losses, last week. They started, blitzing everybody.
Well, that actually hurts. So the thing when you're looking for running back receiving props, blitzing is not ideal because what blitzing usually does is it forces the running back to stay in and protect versus go out in a pattern. So you actually,
I feel like it's different though with Mahomes, who never gets sacked and then he'll just buy time and then dump it to him, or throw it downfield. I get what you're saying with other quarterbacks, but Mahomes will just find ways, run backwards 8 yards, and I'd be curious to see if Mahomes is an anomaly to that.
I mean, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm just saying, that's the risk with Miami, and Miami also. I mean, they could switch it up, like you said, but if they do continue to play man coverage, they play it at a top 3 rate, or at least they have. That's also not ideal for most running backs. Now, Pacheco, I believe, has actually done well against man coverage. So it really depends. If the Chiefs are going with heavy personnel and Noah Gray is always in there as the second tight end, then I think it frees up Pacheco a little bit more. But if they're going to go, 1-1, that's when, he would probably have to protect some. But I do think he's got to be the centerpiece either way. It's just, it might be better to just look at like his total yardage or something like that.
Especially if we think that Miami, which I'm pretty sure they're going to do, they're going to put Ramsey on Rice.
Mm-hmm.
Good night, right? Good night. He's done. You can put him to sleep. And then they're going to bracket Kelsey. So, like, good night.
Yeah, it's Justin Watson and Pacheco and Tony if he's able to play more than like 5 plays.
Yeah.
Okay. But I do remember reading in the rumor mill, or I guess it was the team beat, that they are kind of looking to simplify the offense, not just conceptually, but in terms of the roles that players have on game day. So essentially they want to spread the touches around and snaps around less. Now, this was a few weeks ago, but then I think they only had like 1 game, and then they had, they rested everybody. So if it's not Kelsey and it's not Rice, it's got to be Pacheco. So I think Pacheco does have a big game. And I also think Mahomes rushes for a good amount of yardage. Yeah. Now, the thing is, like, his prop, I already adjust, his scramble rate goes way up in the playoffs. I adjusted for that, but the books are already on top of it. So I have him, like near 30 yards, but so do the books. Usually he's closer in the low 20s. So that no real value there. But yeah, I think anyone, anytime touchdown Pacheco, total yard Pacheco, anything like that, probably a good bet.
All right, for my second pick in the 4th overall of the wild card weekend 6-pack, I'm going with the Houston Texans, Cleveland Browns over 44.5. I mentioned wild card weekend indoor unders, not necessarily the case, or excuse me, outdoor unders, which have gone 51-35, close to 60% over the past 20 years. Indoors, overs 11-8. Fast track here. For what it's worth, the Browns on the road this year, 8-0 to the over by 15 points per game. They were also the number 1 most profitable team total over team in the NFL. But here's why I like this over. So I think it should be over 45 at the minimum. So the Browns now, with Joe Flacco, they've gone from a bottom 5 pass explosive offense to a top 5. They're now playing fast and just chuck it all over. I mean, this is an explosive passing offense with Flacco, and they're going up against the Texans defense that can stop the run, can't stop the pass.
Except last week. Last week they could not stop the run for, I don't know what the fuck that was.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on last week. But their pass defense numbers are horrific. And Stefanski's smart. He's just throwing it all over anyway. I expect that to continue. So I expect Cleveland pass-heavy script. There's going to be some explosive passing plays. And look, this Houston defense, even their pass defense numbers are bad. And here's who they faced. They faced 1 top 10 EPA offense all year. That was Baltimore in week 1. That's it. And that was a new first game of a new scheme. They still lost, I think, 25-8. They've only faced 2 others in the top 13. Tampa, right, the explosive Bucks, which is number 12. Tampa put up 37 in Houston. And the Bengals, who scored 27. That's it. Here are the other offenses that they faced. The Titans twice, the Jags twice, the Colts twice, the Steelers, Falcons, Jets, Broncos, Cardinals, Panthers, Saints, and Browns, who are, bottom tier EPA offense, but not since Flacco's taken over. And the Browns with Flacco put up 36 in the stadium a few weeks ago. The Browns are going to score in this game. On the other side of the ball, the Browns defense, number 1, it's not healthy. Maybe they'll get Delpit back, but they're not healthy at safety. They lost Walker. They lost some defensive line pieces, and it's not the same unit away from home. This is a team that's given up 30 points per game on the road on average. They've given up 22 or more in every game, including against Houston, who had Case Keenum at quarterback, and they still got to 22. This Browns defense is not the same on the road. Stroud, I think, will hit some explosive pass play. He's going to throw downfield. This is an aggressive Browns defense. I think he's going to have opportunities to hit some big plays. So I think we're going to get some explosive passing plays. I am curious to see what Houston does to slow down Cooper. So I would imagine there's probably value on Cooper under. I don't know. I haven't even looked at the numbers. But Cooper went for 265. So do they shadow him with Stingley, I'm guessing, and then say someone else beat us? Njoku probably has a huge game, I would imagine. Maybe more has a couple explosives. But Flacco's more than happy to spread it around. But I am curious just to see what Houston does. Like, do they overreact to what Cooper does? And that opens up some other things. But I think that both offenses should have some explosive passing plays, which is what you want for an over. Fast track here. Would normally be concerned about Stroud, like being inexperienced first playoff start, but it's at home. And like I said, he had basically a road playoff start last year, and he's just head and shoulders above rookie quarterbacks that normally are in this situation that fail and have horrific stats. Flacco obviously has plenty of experience. So, yeah, I think that we're going to get a 9th straight Browns road over. Give me over 44.5.
Yeah, I struggle just with this matchup in general. I'm kind of going back and forth because like at first glance, the total does look low. But then I'm like, okay, Flacco, he's been like, Houston is like predominantly zone team, and like he has been like significantly worse against zone coverage, like a 74 rating and 4.8 adjusted net yards an attempt against zone, 95 rating, 7.4 against man. But then, like you said, what, like if they're going to put Stingley on Cooper, like what the hell are they doing to Cooper last matchup? Like Stingley did cover him, I think, on 5 of his targets. Now he had like 15 targets. Stingley covered him on 5 of them, gave up a touchdown, 43 catches, 43 yards. So like that, that
they're also missing Ward and Thomas now too. We're both on.
Yeah. They should get we'll see about Greenard. Like they need more pass rush.
Yeah, Greenard and Anderson aren't fully healthy.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help. They're not getting the same edge rush. I think they'll both probably play, but I don't think that they'll be at 100%. Which has also hurt their pass defense numbers. But it is just amazing that they faced one top 11 EPA offense all season. Like just stunning.
Well, and then on the other side though, and like I think the Texans obviously, you're under a field goal dog, obviously a live dog at home in the playoffs, but I do worry in this matchup more than the last one about the health of Stroud's non-Nico Collins receivers, because like Noah Brown seems like he's still banged up. Woods, I mean, you really have, like, Woods has been a non-factor even when he's healthy. Mechie, non-factor. Hutchinson, non-factor. But like with the Browns, you're more equipped to take away Nico Collins than Gus Bradley, who's just going to play cover 3, and they burned it on the first play of the game. So like you're not going to stop Stroud to Nico at this point, but if you can kind of limit it a little bit, where else are you really going for offense? If you're the Texans, I mean, Dalton Schultz, he's not, I mean, you could play, if you play man coverage, I mean, Schultz is not good against man. Nico's great, but you could double him. You could put, Ward is healthy, right? Like Ward should be back, right? Yeah. Or so like that is what I worry about, and why like I'm not taking Houston on the spread. So like that, it's just like how I'm kind of going back and forth on the total on the side. So like, yeah, it's a tough cap for me. I mean, I guess bottom line, I could see it going either way, but I mean, you got Joe Flacco chucking it deep all day, good for probably a turnover, and you got one of the best quarterbacks in the game on the other side. So can't say I hate it, but yeah, I'm still kind of undecided what I'm doing with this one. All right. Hopefully you don't get no kicker shenanigans though. With Riley Patterson's pretty good, so a lot better than whoever the Texans' backup kicker was that time.
Yeah.
All right, for my third pick and the 5th overall of the Super Wild Card Weekend 6-pack. I'm going with Jaylen Warren under 9.5 carries. And this will be my prop for the show. And this is my favorite prop thus far that I've found. And the reason being is I love when you have like kind of two extreme matchups kind of meeting, because I think that makes it harder for the market to kind of properly adjust. And that's usually where you find some value. So on one hand, you got this new look Bills offense. It's a lot more run heavy. They're running on 52% of their plays under Brady compared to 41% under Dorsey. So what that's done is their opponent average time of possession for Buffalo, their opponents went from averaging just over 30 minutes of time of possession to just under 26, with Brady. And they're averaging only 56 plays and 16 backfield carries per game since Dorsey was fired. So that is in stark contrast to Jaylen Warren and the Steelers, who, since they fired their offensive coordinator, they've been averaging, nearly 30 backfield carries per game. And Jaylen Warren's averaging 9.9 carries since they fired Canada. But he's been under 10 in 4 of the last 7. And that's with the Steelers holding the ball for an average of 32.5 minutes, running 62.5 plays, and handing the ball off 28 times per game. So you got the Steelers handing off 28 times per game, holding the ball for 32.5 minutes. You got Buffalo allowing only 16 handoffs per game and limiting opponents to less than 26 minutes of time of possession. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is the Steelers, Warren's barely, this is kind of Warren's median or a little under it, even with the circumstances of the last few games, before you even factor in this matchup, before you factor in the fact that they're 10-point underdogs. And also Najee Harris, his emergence has kind of relegated Warren to more of his initial role this season, which was kind of a change of pace and, heavy on the pass snaps. Last 3 games, Najee, 72 carries, 312 yards, 4 tutties. That has relegated Warren to just 29% of the backfield carries, but 74% of the pass snaps. So you just have all these factors that kind of point to, if Pittsburgh does hang close and, kind of surprises us, Najee is going to be the main beneficiary at this point, because you can't, he's the hot hand. He's kind of forced the coach's hand. If the opposite rings true and, Pittsburgh doesn't have many possessions, is it at a deficit, Warren will get more snaps, but they'll likely be passes. So I like this one from a number of angles. And, with Pittsburgh being a 10-point dog, it's worth noting that Warren averaging 9.8 carries per game in wins, 7.3 in losses. And that's generally what you expect of a non-featured running back, 2.5 carries per game less in losses. I think Buffalo should be able to take care of business here. The last time they played Pittsburgh, it was a 38-3 win for Buffalo. I believe it was in sometime early 2022. So like this Warren under 9.5, even juiced up, I would prefer it. You might see an 8.5 at plus money. That's, there's a little bit of value there if you can get it at better than even money, but at under 9.5, this should hit about 2/3 of the time. So the books probably won't juice it to even past like minus 180 before dropping, but I wouldn't hesitate to play under 9.5 at any juice. 8.5, you'd have to be getting better than even money. But Jaylen Warren under 9.5 carries at the Buffalo Bills.
Like it. I wanted to lay it with Buffalo if you can get under 10 or under 10 pops, but I cannot bet it now. There's so much weather uncertainty and the lake effect and how bad are the winds going to be. There could also be snow. We could have a snover. People, I should remind everyone what snovers are. Snover, here are the qualifications. There has to be the perfect amount of snow on the ground. Can't be too much. If it's like a foot, you can't move. But it has to be like a slippery surface. You can't have too much wind. So wind will kill any, over. And then the market comes down because of the weather right before kick. And then that's when you bet the over. But you can't have any wind. So it's just, you need the right conditions and then the market to come down. And then you can get a better number. But so I don't think we'll have a snow bear, because you could have the other night at Buffalo, there was 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts with the lake effect. It's so hard to predict 5 days out. We're recording this on Wednesday. So I got to see how bad these winds are going to be, because, if they're like, do you remember the game against the Patriots when the Patriots just threw it one time Monday night? Like, you could see Josh Allen could still make some throws, but it becomes extremely difficult to even throw the ball, to kick the ball when the winds get to that level. So I need to wait on a clear weather report. If it gets real bad, it's definitely edge to the Steelers. It just creates way more variance, but they will miss Watt bad. I mean, he could change a game with a play, and their defensive numbers with him without him are bad. They also have a lot of injuries at linebacker and safety. We'll see if Fitzpatrick was back, but they're vulnerable in the middle of the field. So I imagine that's where the Bills will attack, on the ground, through the air, tight ends, backs, Allen's legs, because the Steelers are very vulnerable over the middle of the field. But TBD, got to wait on the weather there for that one. But for my third pick in the 6th overall of the Wild Card Weekend 6-pack, I'm going with the Detroit Lions -3. I didn't think I'd be going here, but I dug into this game. And then once this line came back down to 3, I think, Lions fans, I think you're winning on Sunday night. Here are the reasons. Number one, you have to pressure Matt Stafford to throw him off. You have to stop their run game in Kyren Williams. Lions can stop the run. Lions can generate pressure. Number 1 in the NFL in pressure rate, hurry rate, quarterback knockdown rate. Now, they didn't translate to a lot of sacks, but that's not really predictive. They can pressure the quarterback. They can stop the run. Now, are they going to be able to stop and cover Nakua and Kupp? Of course not. Their corners are not good enough, but they also have McNeil back, who helps a ton all across the board. But they got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. The Rams are going to hit their plays. But Stafford, 43% completion percentage under pressure. I think they're going to pressure him. The crowd is going to be an electric factory. It's going to mess with the snap count. You're going to probably get a couple extra calls here. And on the other side of the ball, the Lions have just as big of an advantage, I think more so than the Rams, because the Rams can't get pressure. They can block Donald. And I don't see how this Rams defense is going to get many stops. And then the wild card, special teams. The Rams special teams are going to be the reason that they exit the playoffs. I've said it all season. They will give away something on the road in their impoverished special teams. They're going to miss 2 kicks. They're probably going to give up a big return, get a punt block. Something will happen, which you cannot overcome on the road. But I think Lions can stop. Kyren Williams can pressure Stafford enough to get enough stops, and which should be a higher scoring game. And I don't see how the Rams generate many stops, because they don't get pressure. Goff's indoors. And with their scheme that they play, Goff should be able to pick them apart, Laporta or not. They also should be able to run the ball on the Rams. This Rams team, I think, is overrated. Everyone's calling them a sleeper to win the Super Bowl. I do not see it. They overachieved this year. Credit to McVay. Credit to Stafford, Nakua, Kupp. It's amazing to watch that offense when it's humming. But let's remove the game where everyone sat their starters at the end. Other than that, they went 1-6 against playoff teams this year. The one win was against the Browns at home, who had a ton of injuries. Ward, Garrett, all were hurt in Flacco's, I think, first start. That's it. And they were blown out by a bunch of other teams. Remember, this is a team that lost to the Steelers at home. They should have lost at the Giants a couple weeks ago. Everyone's putting too much weight into that game at Baltimore. They did so much of their damage analytically against the Seahawks and Cardinals, which have just boosted their numbers astronomically. Still a bad defense. Still horrendous special teams unit. I think the Lions, because they can protect better and the Rams don't get pressure, they'll be able to sustain more drives than the Rams and special teams. Campbell, I think, will also have more positively aggressive decisions than McVay in the spot. Throw in the home crowd, get a couple calls, loud, raucous, cause some false starts too. I think the Lions win. At 3, they're a play. At 3.5, they wouldn't have been. But I think the Lions get it done.
Yeah, the more I dig into this one, the more it sounds crazy to say, but I am a little bit worried about that Rams offense too, because I kind of broke it down and I like to look at, okay, it's the playoffs, which defenses might man up, and the Lions. I mean, do you think the Lions will be willing to play some man coverage now with their secondary a little bit healthier?
I think so. I think they're going to have
Right?
to. Yeah.
Because they've been kind of in the top half of the league anyway. But if you look at Stafford and this receiving court against man versus zone, Stafford over a yard per attempt better versus zone.
Yeah, if you don't pressure Stafford and you're in zones, you're done.
Yeah, but the Lions don't have to do that. They can play man. And if you look
and
at
they get pressure, they also get a ton of pressure.
Yeah, and if you look at now you go to the receiving core and you say, okay, well, how is this coming about? Because it's not just a quarterback; it's because of the combination of receivers. And luckily, with the Rams, they play the same guys almost every snap, so you kind of know what you're going to get. You're going to get Nakua, Kupp, and Robinson, Higbee, and then Williams. So against man coverage, yards per route, Puka 2.8 against man, which is elite, and 2.9 against zone. So he's really the only one that is good against man. Cooper Kupp really struggled this year against man. 1.4 yards a route against man, 2.2 against zone. Robinson, 2.3 against zone, but only 1 yard per route against man. Higbee, 1 yard per route against man. That's not good. We want to try to get to 1.5. So 1 is bad, and he's better against zone too, as most tight ends are. And then Kyren Williams, not a major pass catching threat, but he can do it. He averages just under a yard per route against zone coverage, which is not great, but they don't necessarily need it. But against man coverage, negative 0.2 yards per route. So essentially, your main threat would be Nakua. If you're playing man, you could double him. I feel like your strength still is in if top in the slot, you have Branch, you have Johnson. So your best secondary players are kind of inside. Tup has not been good against man. So I just wonder if the Lions, like you said, they'll probably give up some plays by doing it, but I just wonder if they say to hell with it and just come out in a man heavy scheme, live with the couple of explosives and have confidence in their offense against like you said, a defense that doesn't get pressure to just outscore whatever explosives they allow by playing man. Because the more I look in it, I do think Detroit is the right side here.
But it's the Lions, so they'll probably find a way to blow it.
Yeah, that's the only thing. It's I was kind of surprised to see you pick them because I'm like, ooh, man. And I feel like I've heard your voice in my head all year, just saying these Lions are not fraudulent, but overrated.
But I like I said, their defense could help them. I don't think that they can't beat the 49ers or the Ravens, but with McNeil back is huge, and CJ Gardner-Johnson back is huge. Just getting those 2 reinforcements back is massive. Hutchinson's playing a lot better too, just overall. Towards the end of the season, he's getting a ton of pressure. But I think pressure and stopping the run, which is the basis of the McVay offense, with that home crowd, special teams advantage. And then the other side, Rams can't pressure Goff, and he should be able to pick apart this defense, and they should be able to run it. So give me the Lions laying only a field goal at home.
Yeah, I might have to join you on here the more I think about it. Any thoughts on the total? It's 51.5. Sharp.
I'd lean over, but it's so,
on the under.
I'd lean over, but it's so high. You just need everything to go right in a playoff game where teams could be tight. Coaches could get conservative. You also have the Campbell 4th down variance.
And the Brett Maher variance for the for the Rams. That's they're missing at least one kick. It's just, do they get a punt blocked or some other ridiculous to give all the points back?
I think it's about right. I wanted the over, but 51.5 is tough.
Yeah, and like you said, that crowd, because really we're expecting both of these teams to be able to score. But if your cap is correct, I think the Lions actually could win big. But it could be because the Rams don't score, and you mentioned the crowd, you could get a lot of false starts and just things like that, kind of prolonging and backing up drives and things like that, missed field goals. So Yeah, I mean, I think there's the most sharp action we've tracked on a total this weekend is 4 sharp moves as of Wednesday afternoon on the under 51.5. So for what it's worth. But all right, that is going to do it for our Super Wild Card Weekend 6-pack. To recap, Stuck has Cade Otton over 21.5 receiving yards. The Browns Texans over 44.5. Lions -3 at home against the Rams. I have the Packers +7.5 at Dallas, Miami +4 at Kansas City, and Jaylen Warren under 9.5 carries at Buffalo.